Today, we're going to be taking a look at how you can gain strong, steady performance in your portfolio without having to keep up with all of the latest news related to NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft, a way to bring passive growth into your portfolio. We're going to be taking a look at 3 of the top growth ETFs for long-term investors, as well as one mutual fund that I'm investing into. When it comes to these funds, the expense ratios are all equal this time around, but their methodology and how they pick their funds are different. So we'll be taking a look at the real numbers and a few key differences. Before we get started, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. So first, a growth ETF invests in companies expected to grow earnings and revenue faster than the overall market. When it comes to these companies, they're often reinvesting their profits instead of paying out big dividends. Industry leaders that are driving when it comes to innovation, like tech and AI. When it comes to growth ETFs, we usually get a lower dividend, more volatile swings when it comes to short-term movement, but the benefit is they usually outperform when it comes to long-term performance. But we have to be ready for time periods like 2022 because funds like this are going to have a stronger pullback compared to broader market ETFs because of the concentration of the holdings. Okay, so first up, we're going to take a look at VUG, which is Vanguard's Growth Index Fund ETF. It screens U.S. companies for multiple growth characteristics like earnings growth, sales growth, and momentum. All 3 of the funds we're going to be taking a look at today have an expense ratio of 0.04%, which basically means $4 for every $10,000 invested, which is a low fee. There's going to be an expense ratio associated with these type of funds, but finding the right fit with a low fee will keep more of your money compounding, building, and growing to build up your portfolio. VUG over the last year is up about 12%, but over the last 3 years, it's averaged a little over 31% per year. It currently holds about 164 companies, which is the smallest of the 3 that we're going to be taking a look at today. With heavy exposure to tech, consumer discretionary, and communication services. Tech often makes up over 45% of these types of funds because they are focused on growth, and that's what causes that high concentration in those large companies. They are leading when it comes to that area. VUG currently has its highest concentration in Apple, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, and Broadcom. So this is a cost-efficient way to get exposure to those leading U.S. companies when it comes to high growth. VUG rebalances quarterly, making sure that those companies flowing down get reduced or removed so that faster growing companies can move up. And it has a dividend yield of 0.43%. So this is one to consider to hold for the long term for exposure to companies projected to bring that high growth potential to your portfolio. Next up, let's take a look at SCHG. And this is the Schwab U.S. Large Cap Growth ETF. Over the last year, it's up 10.7%. It's very similar to VUG, but the key difference is in the selection criteria. It has that same expense ratio of 0.04%. When it comes to this fund, it screens companies based on fundamental growth characteristics like the historical and forecasted earnings growth and sales growth. So this methodology results in a broader amount of companies being held in this fund. It currently has about 200 companies, slightly more than VUG. And before we go on, when it comes to SCHG, over the last 3 years, its return has been about 32%. Similar when it comes to the top holdings, high concentrations in NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft, Broadcom, and Amazon. When it comes to the funds that we are looking at today, you definitely don't need more than one. They are very similar, very high amount of overlap. SCHG is ideal for investors who want efficient growth exposure, an easy hands-off way to have exposure to the top companies. And this one brings in just a little more companies, broader reach than VUG. And when it comes to SCHG, it has a dividend yield of 0.36%. Next up, let's take a look at State Street's S&P 500 growth ETF. And as you can tell, probably by the name of this fund, it includes companies already in the S&P 500. Then it filters them for growth. It's limited to those S&P 500 companies. Same expense ratio, 0.04%. It uses a multi-factor approach, including earnings growth, sales growth, and price momentum. It has the largest amount of holdings at about 235, roughly half of that S&P 500. And this is a good fit if you want growth, but you want to stay tied to the S&P 500, the biggest, strongest companies in the US. The top holdings have the heaviest concentration into NVDA, Apple, Microsoft, and this one has the highest dividend yield. So taking a look at these three funds along with VOO for a comparison to the total S&P 500, we can see that these growth ETFs outperform due to the tech and innovation-focused companies that have the higher weightings. So the percentages you're seeing here are over the last 5 years. We have the S&P up about 82%, VUG up 90%, SCHG up about 101%, and up also around 90%. So all three funds have very similar long-term performance and the same expense ratio. Not huge differences when it comes to that dividend yield either, but SPYG does have the highest. So like I said, a lot of overlap when it comes to these funds. Just choose one. There aren't any huge differences when it comes to the performance. All three of these are ETFs, which are a tax-efficient way to have exposure to these top growth companies when it comes to your taxable accounts. And speaking of that, I wanted to share one bonus fund, and that is FSPGX. And this is a Fidelity fund that I am doing in my IRA. It's Fidelity's large cap growth index fund. It has an expense ratio of 0.03%, a dividend yield of 0.31. And out of the three funds that we took a look at, the three ETFs that we reviewed today, I saw that this was most similar in performance to VUG. It hasn't been around as long, so we don't have that 10-year plus comparison, but you can see that the performance is very similar. So this is one that you can consider for your portfolio as a long-term hold to build for retirement. So more volatility, but higher performance, staying focused on what's growing steadily, funds that are rebalanced for us, not chasing what's hot, chasing what's truly performing and thriving. Make sure to leave me some comments. Let me know if you're considering any of these funds that we took a look at today, or are you already holding VUG, SPYG, SCHG, or FSPGX when it comes to having exposure to these growth companies in your portfolio. I hope you enjoyed this update. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Check out my referral links for the MooMoo Investing app, where you can do so much research as well as building a portfolio where you can incorporate funds like this that will give you passive growth and a solid foundation to have yourself on track for building wealth. Okay, bye.